3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. A lot to get to on this afternoon's program. In just a few seconds, we will be joined by South Carolina Athletics Director Ray Tanner. A lot to discuss with Coach. We hadn't had him in over a month since the end of basketball season, so we got some basketball recaps. We'll obviously talk a lot about what's going on with the baseball program. We'll get into South Carolina's NIL law that was passed last week across the street at the State House, and a whole lot more. And time permitting, and I hope there is time, I might get Coach to revisit one of my favorite stories that he tells about his time as a head coach. But he doesn't know which one it is yet. So I'll spring that on him a little bit later on. Always a pleasure to have you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today, Jay?
I'm good. Just go ahead and rack up all of the good, fun baseball stories that you've got, all of them, and then I'm going to have you tell one later on, okay? So you just have to be ready for any of them, and I'll let you know which one. I'll put you on the spot. Let's jump right in, Coach, because we got so much to get to, and I promise you we can't get it all done in an hour. Baseball had a rough weekend, but it's having a good season. And I know that's hard for you to watch. It's hard for fans to watch. And you know, a lot of folks felt there was a complete meltdown last weekend against Georgia. Overall, give us, and obviously you know as much about this program as anyone, give us where Ray Tanner is after what happened last week, but trying to put all of that into the 2024 season.
Well, you know, when you talk about today, I mean, we ran into a hornet's nest last weekend in Georgia. What an offensive juggernaut that they have, and they've been swinging the bats all year, and they came in here and just did a heck of a job. I mean, we were in a couple positions at times for good things to happen, but they could hit their way out of it. But you know, we've had obviously go back to the Vandy series where we swept. We beat Florida 2 out of 3, and you know, we beat Kentucky here at home. So a lot of good things have happened. But, you know, the most recent series was home against Georgia, and we were trying to stay in position to potentially be a postseason host. And we still could be, but there's work to be done probably this weekend and at the SEC tournament to get us back in that position.
When you look at where the pitching is right now and you look at some of the things that you remember from your time, what was the hard moment where you knew you had a team that was better than it looked, and you just, you know, and you had to pick your guys up off the mat? And do you feel like Mark is potentially having to do that this week? I mean, 2 weeks ago, as he told us, you know, Dylan Eskew shut out the number one team in the country, and then suddenly Dylan can't find the strike zone, and the guys, as you mentioned, ran into a terrific team, and they didn't have it. When are those moments when you remember having to just tell your guys, hey, you are better than this, but you've got to go play baseball again? Well,
it's tough. I mean, because for the majority of our season this year, you go back to the pitching staff was not maybe a staff that was highly regarded in the SEC, but yet we had pitched very well and had given the team an opportunity to win from a pitching standpoint, and the jobs that Matt Williams had done. But the pitchers had been outstanding for the most part. And recently, last 3-4 weeks, you know, they haven't been quite as good. And that's part of it. It happens. I mean, you can look around this league. It's not a league that you can survive unless you're really close to your best. You can look at the season LSU's having. They're trying to fight their way out. Florida is really a good team. There's no question about it. Look where they are today. So those things do happen, and you don't want them to. You want to stay ahead of the curve a little bit. You're not going to go undefeated. I know there's been some good teams that have won 20 or a few more than that at times, but majority of teams are fighting to get in a position, number one, to host, but certainly to get into a postseason play. And going through this league is a gauntlet. And that's, you know, we got to bounce back now. We're going to Knoxville, to, you know, one of the better teams in the country. But, you know, that's, those are challenges, but certainly great opportunities as well. And hopefully we'll play really well this weekend.
Ray Tanner's on with us right now. And Ray, yesterday we had Mitch Light from The Athletic on to talk about if this team's really in danger of missing the NCAA tournament. And we came to the conclusion we don't think so. But Jay and I were talking today. We realized, you've been in the room where it happens, where this type of tournament's laid out, including being chair of the selection committee. So as somebody who's been in that position before, how do you evaluate the body of work that this Gamecock baseball team has done so far and where you think they're able to stand?
Well, you mentioned some key words there with body of work and having served on that committee for 4 years. That was something that I said quite often, because you go into that selection room at the end of the season and you talk about a few teams that maybe didn't play as well late. Well, that's got a lot to do with who you played. Maybe you weren't playing your best baseball, but it is about the body of work. So we've got really good numbers. Our metrics are good. I mean, we played, I think that once we go to Tennessee, we're probably playing, I believe it's the top 7 teams in the country that we would have played by ranking. So we're not gonna be short when it comes to metrics. We hope we win a few more games, and then that puts us in the position we need to be in. But things do get talked about. You always talk about the last 10, which I was never a big proponent of talking about the last 10, because body of work to me was more important. But we've got good numbers, and hopefully we can finish in a good way, and that takes care of a lot of conversation that we're having.
Going back, and I think I've asked you this before in some form or fashion through the years, but so forgive me, I can't remember exactly when or how, Coach, but 08 and 09 we talked about were tough years for your program after the trips to Omaha and the trips to the Supers and championships or co-championships in the conference, and then bounced in 2 consecutive regionals on the road. And that was kind of a, in a relative sense, Coach, a low point. Of course, everybody knows the next 3 seasons you played for the national title. But what do you remember about those days, and do you see any similarities with where things are for the program now? You're heading to the tournament. It's a good team, but it's just not what you want it to be. And do you ever struggle to figure out why?
Yes. I mean, especially when you sit in the chair that I sat in, Mark Kingston sitting in it. It keeps you up at night, because you want to be able to fix it, whatever that is. But that's just not the way the game's played. I mean, you look at the big leagues, and the Twins go on a roll and win 11, 12 in a row, and other teams are scuffling, but they pick it back up. They play 162. We play 56. So it's a lot different. But it only takes a spark or two for something to turn it around, and that's hopefully you get a chance to go to Tennessee against a great team, and if you can play really well in the beginning of that series, it could change not only the series but where you go from there. So it's hard sometimes. You're looking for that big outing. Like Eskew against Kentucky was special. And then he was in the right spot against Georgia to finish that game. It didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but you just want to have that spark when you need it, and then things kind of start to roll a little bit. But I remember when it was we were getting beat on the road in the regionals, it was hard, because you do search for the missing ingredient to change things up a little bit, whether it's personnel, whether it can be a change in positions, or whatever the case may be, that you're trying to catch a little momentum where you can run with it a little bit. And that's what it's all about, I think, college athletics. It's about who grabs the momentum at the right time.
When it comes to assessing Coach Kingston, I'm sure you're quite aware that a lot of fans were very disgruntled last weekend, and obviously the season is going on, and you've talked about it, we've talked about it. There's a lot to play for, and while it may be slim, there is still the chance of South Carolina hosting in the NCAA tournament. Take us through how you're evaluating now and what you're looking to when it comes to conversations with Mark when that time is right.
Well, I don't know that I would share, postseason conversations with you with any coach, but I would just tell you that you want to be in a position where people care, and they do care here. They want to win in baseball, and that's a big deal. I can remember, like it was yesterday, that we weren't playing particularly well back. Maybe it was 08 and 09, maybe, that you pointed out, and a couple of our players were whining a little bit after the game that our fans were tough on them. And I listened. I listened to the conversation for a few minutes back in the locker room, and I said, "Hey guys, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want fans who care, or do you want fans to not care? We didn't play well today. We didn't win today. Whatever the case may be. So that's the expectation that you want to have, and I think that's okay. It's they're just telling you they care, they want to win, and that's the kind of environment that you want to be around, because they're going to be there for you when it's crunch time. And we were in a hosting situation, and maybe it's still possible. It might be a little bit more difficult now, but you can get in that situation with our fan base behind us. It makes a difference.
And Coach, you mentioned, maybe that player pressure too. And when you were coaching, as all coaches at this level do, you're not just, a strategic decision maker. You're not just coaching fundamentals. You're kind of playing psychologist a little bit too. What's kind of, I guess, your message to maybe some of these kids who are seeing a lot of what's online, seeing the angst, which happens in a weekend like you had against Georgia, to be able to maybe turn this around just within the walls of the locker room and within the conversations that these players had, like the ones that you just alluded to?
Well, that's a great point, great question. I mean, there is angst, there's pressure that, self-inflicted in many cases, the guys that want to do well. And, I evolved as a coach. I think sometimes I don't know if intense is the right word. I don't like to think that it is, but maybe put pressure on players that was undue, that it didn't help them. This is a game. Baseball is a game of failure. It just is. It will humble you. There's highs and lows, and you heard Coach Kingston speak about that a little bit this weekend. It is real, and seems like the great ones are able to put the adversity behind them quickly. They let the bad at bats, the bad plays, the bad pitching, they let it go as quick as they can, and they bounce back. So that's a real key. And there's some veteran players on our team right now, so I'm hoping that that kicks in. But they want to do well, and sometimes you do put yourself in a position that you try to do too much. But at the end of the day, you gotta try to make plays. You got to try to be in a position to be offensive or pitch really well. You can't let that negativity enter into it, and you got to play free. You really do, and it gives you a better chance to be successful.
Talking to Gamecock Athletics Director Ray Tanner here on the program. Got him for the full 3 o'clock hour, so we'll come back on the other side, get into what happened last week at the State House as the legislature passed an NIL law. What does that look like for the Gamecock Athletic Department? And we'll tie that in with some of the things going on nationally. A lot more to do with Coach Tanner as the postgame show rolls on. Since 1936, Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union has been part of the Midlands. They go the extra mile for their members, have the entire time, no matter how many commas they might have in their account. Palmetto Citizens will tell you that they can see the difference that they make in the community every day. Teachers that get a new car loan, local businesses that open up when maybe a big bank said no to them, the neighbor who just got their first house. Those kind of things are real, and they can be real for you too. Listen, nothing wrong with the big bank. We all need banking, except that the big banks might pay stockholders or have a lot more fees and things that come out of your wallet, out of your pocketbook, out of your account. Not going to happen for you at Palmetto Citizens. See what they can do for you for checking, savings, credit cards, car loans, student loans, mortgages, equity lines, you name it. They've got it for you. And great people to work with all locally across the Midlands. Check them out online, palmettocitizens.org. Join my wife and me as members of Palmetto Citizens and achieve your potential. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Wednesday afternoon. Jay Phillips and Elijah Campbell with you from the Herndon Chevy Studios. Happy to be joined by South Carolina Athletics Director Ray Tanner. Always appreciate his time. I know, Coach, before we get into our next big topic, that our buddy Ryan McGee got in contact with you to talk about Coach Gilmore's retirement down at Coastal. And unfortunately, they didn't get to play their last home game against Clemson last night because of bad weather. But and I love that you said, well, there's really not a rivalry between us. You didn't really see Coastal that much. Obviously, an incredibly important 2 games back in 2010. But, how much better when you were doing your thing and Jack was doing his thing and Gary was doing his thing. You ever stop and think about how much better y'all made baseball in this state?
I did. I think it was, I don't know, one of those years you look up and you got 5 or 6 teams that are in the postseason from this state and, 3 hosting and it was really special. It just speaks volumes to, how many players wanted to play in this state or from this state that were playing for the teams. I know the landscape has changed quite a bit now, but, talking about Coach Gilmore, what a career. I mean, I knew for many years how good they were. I wasn't disappointed those years that we didn't play them. They were so good. But we did play them quite a bit over the years. And then back when we beat them in 2010 at their place, I told our players when we survived, I said, you know what, we're not going to play anybody any better in Omaha than we just played. You guys have made it. This is a tremendous accomplishment. This team is really talented, the Coastal team, and we just advanced. So when we get to Omaha, you're not going to play anybody any better than we just played. That was a tremendous, tremendous team. And I know we went on to win a national championship after that. But I always think back to, I think they were number 4 national seed at the time, really good team. But the job that Coach Gilmore did for so many years, we knew, you knew. I don't think people across the country necessarily knew, but they started to pay attention to the job that he did at Coastal, and just a great program, and attracted so many good players, had some really good assistants, and I know one's going to be taking over for him. So,
yeah. But
a salute to Coach Gilmore and the career that he's had for the Shots down there in Coastal.
Yeah, I remember being down on the field before Game 2 and my first time around those Coastal kids, and I was like, oh my God, they had some dudes, Coach. I mean, they had some. I was like, man, you play football or baseball? What are we doing here? All right, so real quick. And I don't want to set it up where I tell the joke and the punchline before the comedian gets to tell, you in the role of the comedian here for a second, or at least the storyteller. But you do have one about talking to Adrian right around the time that Christian hit his home run. And I'd like you to maybe revisit that story for everybody, since it might be a bad memory for Coastal folk, but it was a good memory for y'all.
Well, there were so many versions with Adrian Morales, but when we were trying to come back from a deficit late in that game, Jackie was leading off that inning, and I remember talking to all 3 of those guys, Jackie and Adrian and Christian Walker, over around the batting circle, and I said, hey, we're in the right spot here to try to get this thing in a good position and win it. And I knew Jackie would be patient, and he would, he'd run that count full, or he'd get a good pitch to hit and could get on base. And I was telling Adrian, we got to get Walker to the plate. And I said, you got to be patient as well. And he didn't like that. he didn't like that address. And he was like, if that first one's in there, I'm going to bust it. I go, well, hold on a minute. Let's think about this. Let's think about making sure we're getting Christian to the plate. And we had a little banter back and forth, which was, Adrian and I did that quite a bit. But he bounced one over the bag for a double, and then set the stage for Christian. But that was Morales, one of the greatest competitors of all time. It's ironic that I was talking to Coach O'Sullivan down in Florida a few days ago, and he talked about Morales the whole time.
Yeah.
Because he was here for both of the championships, and while he didn't have the best numbers in the world, or the greatest power, the greatest speed, or even the best defensive guy, he was the ultimate consummate winner, is what he was.
Yeah.
And he made everybody around him better, and it was good. It was fun for me. Not many players will challenge you, and he did. He didn't do it disrespectfully, but he would want to know why I was thinking a certain way or why I did strategically, why I made a certain move. And sometimes he didn't accept it. He would
I can think of a few of those stories where you told one day, I forget what it wasn't in the playoffs, I don't think, but it's like, oh, why are you screaming at me? You know, and you were like, I'm not screaming at you. I'm your coach. I'm here to tell you what you're supposed to do. You know.
Yeah, he was good. He's doing a great job coaching today, and I'm not surprised that he's successful as a coach down in South Florida. But ever so often we talk, and I tell him, I made you who you are today. Of course, he tells me, I got you 2 rings. So it's like we go back and forth, but we have a good time.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, there was some version in Myrtle Beach, too, of Walker can't hit a 3-run shot if you're not on base, right?
Yeah. He said, don't worry about me. But yeah, he was a special player, fun to coach.
Yeah. He'd have probably gotten some pretty good NIL opportunities as I segue into that one, Coach. And last week, the South Carolina legislature, after one little late hiccup, did pass the NIL law. And the governors signed it. It's good to go now. How ready is the South Carolina Athletics Department to do what this bill allows for?
Well, you give me a great opportunity to say thank you, publicly to all of, our senators and our House members who listened to us and gave us an opportunity to visit with them for many months to try to position this. As you know, Coach Beamer, Coach Staley, Coach Sweeney, the Coastal coaches, Matt Hogue at Coastal, the athletic director, and Graham Neff, we were all at the State House periodically visiting, trying to make sure that everyone understood this is a benefit to our state, not to Clemson or South Carolina or anybody in particular. It was for the student athletes that play in the state of South Carolina. We needed an opportunity to take advantage of the assets that we have, which are, the ITE and the Gamecock Club, and to use our assets, because in the NIL space before, if a donor made a donation or went through a collective, they didn't get any credit in as far as parking or tickets or rankings or any of that. This bill now allows that to happen. So it puts us in a better position to compete, if you will, in this landscape, and it's evolving, and there may be changes ahead. We'll have to wait and see, but we're very grateful that we're in a position now, hopefully with the governor's signature, that we move forward and position our universities better than we were before.
Coach, what's the timeline look like for you bringing NIL in-house, whether it's, folding the Garnet Trust in, something different, something new? Do you want to do, if it allows for that, but is that something that you want to snap your fingers and do? Is that going to take a little time? Give us an update on how that looks.
Well, I think it can be different, Jay, at different places according to, how they want to operate. The Garnet Trust has been really good and done a great job. Jeremy Smith and Mark Burnett, they've done a really nice job, and we have lots of collaboration. And some schools potentially will, bring NIL in house. I don't know that we'll necessarily end up in that space. Our collective likely will still be involved. Maybe it's arranged a little bit different than it is now, but we were pleased with what the Garnet Trust brought and how they handled their business with us, and like I said, the collaboration. So some collectives have been viewed as not being in coordination with athletics or distant or doing their own thing. That wasn't the case with the Garnet Trust. So we were pleased from that standpoint, and I think that here, according to as we move forward, I would anticipate that the Garnet Trust would remain involved in what we do.
Talking to Coach Ray Tanner, and again, the state of South Carolina NIL law has been passed, so more control at least for schools in that particular realm. Come back on the other side. We'll stay with NIL, but branch out to the national perspective as a few big lawsuits may be nearing a settlement. We'll talk with Coach about how that might directly affect the USC budget coming up here on the Postgame Show.
A lot of awesome basketball and hockey playoff action last night. And the women's basketball professionally started last night. And if you missed out on Prize Picks' promotion for 0.5 points more for Caitlin Clark in her debut, don't sweat. They have stuff like that all the time. That very frequent offers. They also offer special offers to make the biggest moments in sports even better, and that might even come here during the playoffs. But tonight, definitely in on Evan Mobley going more than 16.5 points. Look, no Donovan Mitchell potentially, no Jarrett Allen definitely for the Cleveland Cavaliers. It sounds pretty good to me. That's what I'm riding tonight. And you can join in as well. Just download the app today and use promo code 1075GAME for a first deposit match up to $100. It's promo code 1075GAME, and Prize Picks will match that deposit up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks.
Talking all things Gamecock athletics, or at least as much as we can fit into the 3 o'clock hour here on the postgame show, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Coach Ray Tanner, kind enough to join us for the full 3 o'clock hour. We have talked baseball, Coach has remembered Gary Gilmore as the great coach that he was at Coastal as his time with the Chanticleers nears an end. Got in a little Adrian Morales story, and we've talked state of South Carolina NIL law. So we've checked those boxes, Coach, and I'll stay with NIL, but in a little bit of a different form right now. And I know a lot of this is speculative, so as a sitting AD in the Southeastern Conference, I don't know how much leeway you have, but all of us that follow college sports have been following the House versus NCAA case, which the plaintiffs, former athletes, to remind people, are suing for back pay of NIL they were not allowed to receive. And that could be a lot of money for NCAA member schools. There is a settlement that is being worked on right now. And one of the things, Coach, that I want to ask you about is that the potential settlement may set aside roughly $20 to $25 million per school, at least those that can afford it, to directly pay athletes for name, image, likeness, because it's not supposed to be pay for play. How are you following that? You know, as much as you can say about how you're looking at this and your colleagues in the conference are looking at this, are you hopeful that this brings us into a new, more collaborative era when it comes to college athletics?
Well, to answer your question, yes, I hope it brings us in a better place collaboratively, that you know, we're sort of all working in the same space. I'm assuming that you read the ticker every morning, the D1 ticker, which is good material that kind of updates on what happened the night before or the day before. And, you know, I think they've captured it pretty well. I won't say it's 100% accurate. I don't know that. But we met last week as athletic directors in person. The presidents and chancellors of the Southeastern Conference are very much engaged in this process. So we'll see where it ends up. But you mentioned a potential settlement. That certainly, you know, something that has been discussed is on the table. So we'll see where that lands potentially in the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. I've said from the very beginning, Jay, that I believe in name, image, and likeness for student athletes. And we've made so much progress over the years with cost of attendance, with the educational benefits. It's the Austin case, which resulted in financial rewards academically. So we've done a lot, but it doesn't necessarily have to stop anywhere, because I think athletes should be monetized based on their fair market value of name, image, and likeness. Where we might have lost our way is those three words, for fair market value, because you see some numbers occasionally that you scratch your head that, is that really the fair market value of a particular player, regardless of the sport? So I think that we need to get to a place that, you know, maybe the landscape is a little bit more clear than it is today, and then we move forward. Yes, you referred to budgets and finances. Those are things that you have to be concerned about. And keep in mind that new legislation in most cases is permissive. It's not mandatory, it's permissive legislation.
That's a good point. But yeah, and that's what a lot of states are doing too. And one of the things that I did see, Coach, is that this settlement wouldn't necessarily supersede state law. So you're good with that portion of it potentially? Well,
I think that you know, there's an opportunity that it works both ways. That, you know, state law is okay, and then a settlement situation would not hamper anything that we're doing as well. So they work in conjunction.
Okay.
And Ray, you hit on the one thing that is my biggest issue with what we have in the NIL landscape right now. It's that fair market value, right? And kind of a lack of transparency doesn't really allow us to have a great idea of what the fair market value is. And I think one thing that does get lost in a lot of these conversations when it comes to legislating this is, you know, making certain things transparent. You know, the same way that an NFL quarterback in free agency can compare his numbers and his achievements to a similar quarterback, and we can establish that market. How achievable do you think this could be, given the current landscape, given current legislation, and what you're hearing from maybe other athletic directors and seeing from other NIL collectives and athletic departments?
Well, it's, you know, let's be realistic. It's not perfect. It probably will never be perfect. But with transparency, with fair market value, I think there's a better opportunity that the landscape is better. And you're not gonna, if you're doing NIL deals, fair market value. I mean, it's like how much you pay for a house. It's how much you're willing to pay. In many cases, so you have to. I think it really has to be transparent, as you mentioned, and then we go from there. But we'll see. There's still a lot to shake out. But I think we're getting a little bit closer than we were before. Ultimately, I think that we still think that Congress plays a role if that ever comes to pass. It hasn't yet, but we certainly have visited with people in Washington, and we've been there. So I'm not saying that they're not paying attention. I think they are. They were eager to listen and learn about our situation, and ultimately, I think things are better if Congress legislates it. But we're not there. Until we get there, we've got to get to the best place possible.
Coach, one of the other things that could be potentially coming out of this settlement is an end to scholarship limitations. And I don't know how many times that we've spoken with you, with Chad, with Mark about 11.7, but it's probably more than 11.7 times. Would you be in favor of that across the board? That might mean a lot more expense, might mean some schools would even have to cut something, but it would certainly, I think, benefit the sport of baseball and some of those other sports that have limited scholarship opportunity right now.
Well, you can say, well, you're biased because you came from the baseball space, but 11.7 was extremely low for a roster of 40 players, and you're traveling 30 players this day and age. So there are other sports that can use more scholarships too, track and field for men and women. And I do like the fact that you have a roster limit, but potentially you have a roster limit, but scholarships are unlimited. I'm okay with that. It could make the playing field a little bit uneven if you go that way, because again, it's permissive. You're not mandated to give a certain number of scholarships, but it allows you to up to your roster limit in the case that you're referring to. So we'll see where that goes, but yes, I would be in favor. I think I've always said, we've got 21 sports here, 12 women's sports and 9 men's sports. It'd be great if everybody that your roster size, if everybody was on full scholarship. That's a lot of money, but it also is logical in a lot of ways also.
Before I take a break here, and I got some spring sports things that I want to get to for you in the final segment, but SEC meetings are coming up. You mentioned that you've just had some already in person, presidents and chancellors doing it, but your annual meetings down in Destin, at least spring meetings down in Destin coming up. What's number one potentially on Ray Tanner's agenda, and then maybe from a conference perspective, as much as you can share, what do y'all want to see get done this spring? What's the most pressing thing right now that you believe is facing the Southeastern Conference?
Well, that's a good question, and according to maybe what happens if there is some sort of settlement, you keep hearing the conversation. By the time we get to Destin, then that alters and changes the conversation a little bit. But I think that we'll discuss a lot of things that are happening with the transfer portal and different windows of opportunity to leave, and can we make some adjustments? Can you do it within the conference? Is it going to be national? There's just a lot of different perspectives to look at, and we continually Commissioner Sankey, it doesn't miss anything. So we spend a lot of time in the details of what's the right thing to do for our student athletes and for our universities across the Southeastern Conference. So, football certainly will be discussed. We go to 16 teams next year, all one division except for women's soccer. They're the only sport that will have 2 divisions, and most of our schedules are done by now. So we're looking at a different schedule than years before. So there's a lot that'll be going on, and maybe some legislation, but I think that we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks before we get to Destin.
How closely, as an ACC alum and a former ACC head coach, are you looking at what's happening in that conference right now?
I haven't, I read the stories that are posted, and, same things that you see all the time, but I haven't followed it all that close. I know that it's interesting in many ways in what has happened, but I'm certainly proud of the Southeastern Conference and where we are today, and the leadership of Greg Sankey.
Come back, talk a little more spring sports, get a coach's recap on the basketball offseason because it was eventful. Well, so was the end of the season for that matter, and more with Coach Ray Tanner as the postgame show continues. Welcome back in. Final few minutes with Coach Ray Tanner here on this Wednesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. We got a lot to get to around the country. We'll give you more detail on some new things on that potential House versus NCAA settlement. There's a lot that Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports has put out. We'll get into that for you, plus a few Gamecock football notes to get to. But, Coach, it's springtime. Bev Smith's team in the tournament. Bill McDonald's team in the tournament. Kaylin's in the tournament with her women's golf team. It's been a good spring so far. A lot of good things going on around track. So you're busy this time of year.
Yes, it's been actually pretty good. And you mentioned Coach Smith's team. They played pretty well lately. Their offense has come to life, and they've had good young pitching this year. So I think that going up to the regional at Duke, I think is a good draw for us. Duke's a really good team, and they're hosting and. We got to beat Utah before we advance, but I think they've got a chance. They're playing in the SEC, and as you know, every team in the league got a bid to the postseason.
And it's not the first time,
teams.
right? I don't think it's the first time that's happened. No,
it's not the first time, and we I think maybe 4 out of the last 6 years, something like that. That's just how difficult this conference is. Tough in all sports, but certainly women's softball is very competitive nationally and deservingly so. They get an opportunity to go play. But Coach Smith had some really good pitching lately. We had a heartbreaking loss to Texas A&M in the tournament, but she can make some noise. You mentioned Coach McDonald's team. He just finished in the Baton Rouge Regional. He missed a cut to go to the national finals. I think we finished 8th. We had to be in the top 5.
Right.
Coach Anderson's team's out in Carlsbad, California. They had their practice round today. Tomorrow they start first round. Tomorrow's Thursday, so they start Friday, and they will play 54, and then the top 15 will play again the next day. And then there's the top 8 go to match play. So it's like 6 rounds in 5 days. So it's a lot of golf. I went out last year when they went to the finals to Scottsdale. So I went out there and watched him. But Coach Hall's done a great job in a short time with track and field. He's got some really special talent that have won at a high level already. So good things are happening, and we want to continue to advance and be in the postseason and have some individual champions as well when it comes to track and field and golf if we advance individually. But Coach Anderson's team has been good all year, and I like our chances if we get out at the right time.
Who's the lucky sport administrator that gets to go with the women's golf team out to California?
Well, is that a setup question? Is that? I think that's the setup.
A little bit.
Yeah. So Charles Bloom is a sport oversight for golf, and he never misses an opportunity for a great trip.
A little birdie told me that maybe Bloom was getting to head out west, and I was like, oh, that's a good gig. That's a good gig.
Can't say I blame him.
If you can get it.
I told him, I said, don't think that I won't show up, because I'm known to do that.
I got just about 2 minutes left for you, so we'll squeeze it in. Obviously, we've talked a lot on this radio station and other places about the tremendous job that Dawn Staley and her team did in going undefeated and winning another national championship for this university. You also had a great year from Lamont Paris, and you've secured him long term. We haven't spoken to you since the end of basketball season, so we'll leave you with that. But that's about as good as it can get around here, and obviously you want bigger things for basketball, and looks like Lamont on his side is stepping up the recruiting thing. So looking good.
Well, you're right, and what a great second year with that team that he put together, and they just exuded selflessness on the court the entire season, and finished tied for second with some other teams, and just played hard the entire year. Good things happened. We had a tough opener in the NCAAs, but certainly a big jump from year one, and very happy with what they were able to accomplish. And then you talk about Coach Staley's team. I mean, it's just almost impossible. 3 losses, I guess, in 3 years. And this year they have a brand-new team. I mean, you talk about the year before that everybody basically was gone. She had some minutes back from the year before, but this was a new team. And did we think it was a talented team? Sure. mean, she would tell you that we've got a lot of really good players, but the on-court experience wasn't what other teams have been. But yet they went through the season unblemished, and yeah, they had a few tough games, but not that many. And it seemed like the fourth quarter was always ours, even if the other team was making a run at us. But just to stay undefeated the way that they did it with really a young team was so impressive. And to win a national championship again, you just can't say enough. I've been in that coaching seat. It's hard for a lot of people to really appreciate what was accomplished and the job that she's done in her career here. So it's phenomenal. And before you shut me up here, I want to tell you they also had a 3.0 GPA this spring.
Yeah.
17 of our 18 teams had a 3.0 this spring, Jay. So a lot of good things are happening, academically as well as in competition. We had a 3.37 overall, and that was our 35th consecutive semester with a 3.0. So Charlie Ball and her staff in the Academic Enrichment Center, they position our student athletes to be successful. But just like in competition, players make plays.
Yep.
And our young men and young women do the work in the classroom to get the grades. I mean, we have great leadership, but the credit goes to the performers, and that's exciting when you get a chance to. The grade report comes out, and you go, my goodness, we are achieving at a high level, and there is life after sports. And, I feel good about the leadership that we have in the Dodie Anderson Academic Enrichment Center, as I mentioned, Charlie Ball and her staff. So a shout out to them and all of our student athletes that have achieved at a high level.
Good stuff as always, sir. We appreciate you. We'll talk again soon over the summer. Thank you.
Good talking to you guys.
Yes, sir. That's Ray Tanner. Welcome back to the Barry White Hour here on the game. It's really not.
Oh, yeah.
Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Thanks again to Coach Ray Tanner for joining us.
Creep everybody out. You didn't creep Ray out this time. You didn't.
He's not listening. He's back to doing whatever he's doing. So
True. You might have creeped him out, actually. He wasn't here, so we couldn't see his face. But
if I had gotten into, more of a Barry White kind of thing, then it starts to get weird.
it would have gotten Make Ray uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I'm not here for that. I want him to come back on.
Yeah.
I enjoyed him telling the Morales story. That was good.
He's got a few. It sounds like he's got
He does, man.
Like, we could do a whole hour on Morales stories.
Covering, listen, when you win a national title in something, like, you got to have so many quality moving parts, right? And, Christian Walker was the best player on the team. Although, you could make a case for guys like Merrifield and Bradley, obviously, and others. Talk about all the pitching. But I think to a player, those guys all looked at Adrian differently. He was their age, but maybe had a level of, like, brash maturity about him. He played third, so he had a important, tough guy position, right? Like, there's something about a third base. It
can't be soft.
It's what I love about baseball. Like, every position, like, nobody's soft necessarily, but every position is different. Like catchers, like, very rarely is there a dude that you can't, like, on a baseball team, you're like, you could probably without the gear go, you're the catcher, aren't you?
You can spot him, like, in a lineup with no uniform on.
And maybe it's because they're big or so, but there's even different kinds of catchers. Like, I think about Grayson Griner, who's like, more like a basketball player, because Grayson's just so tall and long. But anyway, Adrian just had that vibe, man, and he did. And Coach has told us before, like, I can't remember. We'll get next time. We'll get Ray on and we'll talk about that. But I forget what moment it was. Coach might have even forgotten when, but Ray was, like, giving him the business a little bit, as he says. And Adrian's like, in his South Florida accent, like, why are you screaming at me? like I know what I'm supposed to do here. Like, I'm good. But as Ray said, he one of the rare players. It's different in the pros, I think. I think in the pros sometimes there can be more of a back and forth office type approach, workplace approach. But in amateur athletics, even at the highest level of them, which SEC is, it's still amateur athletics. It's still school. There's still supposed to be, or we perceive it as that perception between the coaches in charge and the players listen to the coach, and that happens still. But Adrian was a different cat, man, and he made Carolina baseball go. I really think he was one of those driving engines that just kept everybody pumped up, motivated, edgy, but in a good way, edgy, not pensive edgy, but like, right. More motivated, edgy kind of a guy. But and a solid player. He was a good, Jackie went on to the bigs, and Witt went on to the bigs, and Roth had a little bit of time in the bigs. Certainly Walker's still doing his thing all these years later. Morales didn't do that. I think he had a cup of coffee in the minors. And he's coaching now. He loves the sport. But
like most players.
But I can't.
College baseball.
I don't think anybody can imagine that team, those teams, plural, without him doing what he did. He was fun to cover, man, and fun to watch, and a fiery dude. That was fun. But that story came up for those of you who missed it. We were asking Coach Tanner to just reminisce a little bit about Gary Gilmore and what he's meant. Again, there was a time, seriously, when you had so much good college baseball in this state at one time, but especially the highest level with what Ray was doing and what Jack Leggett was doing and what Gary Gilmore was doing. Gary got his title, Ray got his titles. Jack went to a bunch of World Series. Clemson didn't win one, and of course Carolina twice beat Clemson, who was in the winner's bracket. Carolina had to come through the loser's bracket. So that's fun for Carolina fans. But good stuff from Coach Tanner. We'll revisit a little bit of it for you throughout the afternoon, and all of it will be up on our podcast page at 1075thegame.com or on the 1075 The Game app. Meanwhile, a couple of things to tell you about. First off, the Carolina-Kentucky football game scheduled for Saturday, September 7 in Lexington. That's week 2 of the regular season. Has been tapped as the ABC SEC Game of the Week. So that will be a 3:30 kickoff. That's the new,
Hell yeah.
I don't want to say primetime slot because primetime is evening, but the 3:30 slot is the
Game of the Week
Game of the Week slot. And South Carolina, Kentucky, week 2 will be the Game of the Week. Week 1's Game of the Week is Miami at Florida. Obviously not a conference game, but still a big-time game. So Carolina at Kentucky gets the first nod for the first conference game of the week. And that's a pivotal game for those two. We'll obviously have plenty of time to discuss, so I won't get into an entire breakdown of Carolina versus Kentucky in football on a Wednesday in May, but I'm glad they chose that one. I honestly do not know what other conference games may be on that day. One of the things about Carolina and Kentucky, and I know Georgia as well, and I guess Florida for some conference games, they try to pack their conference schedule up earlier because each of those schools has their big in-state rival that's out of conference. So a lot of schools obviously play a conference game on the last week of the year. So it's an early, very pivotal game. And a lot of years, Elijah, that was a game where Carolina would have played Georgia early in the season. Obviously, no Georgia this year or next. Ugh.
Boo.
Yeah, I
Still
can't
sucks.
I'm going to keep. You're going to hear
It's an automatic boo.
Yeah,
every time.
It is. I just hate it.
Boo.
I hate it. I just. And again, I've talked to some folks out on the other side of the conference. No Bama, Ole Miss for the next 2 years, things like that. You know, it's just terrible. But whatever.
Tennessee's going to go without playing Georgia.
Yeah, it's not.
And vice versa.
It's not.
Like those were usually decent matchups.
It's just it's not good. It's not you know. Tennessee and Georgia, a border rival.
Yeah.
And I know Georgia doesn't play Alabama every year, but Georgia every year should play. They play Auburn every year, border rival.
Yep.
You play South Carolina every year, border rival. You play Florida every year, border rival. You play Tennessee every year, border rival. Georgia's got a lot of border rivals. I get it. But you should play those games. And Georgia doesn't want to lose those games. Hell, for one thing, no pun intended. When I say lose, I mean off the schedule.
They
don't want to. They're both
game.
right,
Yeah.
both. But Georgia would be like, hey, I'd rather play those. I mean, I don't think Georgia and Kirby care at this point who they're going to play. They will be favored to win. But anyway, Carolina, Kentucky. But Carolina's beaten Kentucky 2 years in a row. And one of the things we talked about for the last couple of seasons was, man, if you want to start climbing that ladder again, or at any point, you've got to beat Kentucky. And for a while there, Kentucky had Carolina's number. So a chance for Shane Beamer to win a third straight. And now you do it in a big-time TV slot.
You know my favorite thing about the Kentucky-South Carolina game is, though? It's because it is becoming a little bit of a manufactured rivalry because you're not going to play Tennessee, Georgia, Florida for the next few years. If you want some of that rivalry juice, in some of your conference games, like, look, it's so much of this is going to be just manufactured and artificial, right? Like, you're going to have to pretend to hate Oklahoma and Texas. You're going to have to pretend to keep hating Missouri, even though I don't think you have to pretend anymore. I think that one's kind of budding.
But I think Eli helped fix that.
Eli helped fix that, yeah. But you have to pretend to hate Vanderbilt, which they're like really hard to hate because they're just not good. And when you just beat up on somebody all the time, sometimes the hateability factor isn't like inherently there. But with Kentucky, it's building because I don't think Mark Stoops and Shane Beamer could be more different as people and as coaches, and they even have that little rivalry with each other. Putting this on ABC in a pivotal point of the year before your schedule completely goes to hell with the tough matchups is going to be awesome because Kentucky will have the same thing. Like their schedule is going to get significantly tougher too. You get this early when there's still a ton, of still a lot of optimism. There's a lot of optimism for the game last year. Don't get me wrong, but it's different when you're playing that second game of the year, first conference game on prime time, SEC prime time,
right?
Game of the week with two what I will consider to be really even teams. I think the roster is going to be really even. But in an era of manufactured and artificial rivalries that the SEC has created amongst itself, this one actually works a little bit.
It does, and I think it's because of how over the last decade and a half, I guess maybe I should say, maybe close to 20 years if I really stop and think about it, There's been an ebb and flow, but it's been a different kind because Carolina, I think, won 10 of 11, and then Kentucky won 7 of 8, and now Carolina's won 2 in a row. I think I have it right about that. So, again, over the last 20 or so years. But there's been so many of those seasons where the two fan bases are convinced that their team is better than the other. And I could give you, like you like to do sometimes, like the blind resume.
Yeah.
If I took out like a team name or didn't tell you what the fan was and just gave you the descriptions of some of the things that people say, you wouldn't know if it was Carolina fans talking about Kentucky or vice versa.
Yep.
Because in a lot of years, it has been that way. And that's harder for Carolina fans to accept, because I do think South Carolina fans perceive themselves, or at least their football program, as being better than Kentucky's. And that would be fair. I mean, Carolina is not Georgia or Florida from an historical perspective or anything like that, but you are better than Kentucky over the decades. Now, there's a reason for that, and it may well be the same reason that North Carolina is not very good at football, because there's another sport on campus that they really care about a lot. And I've said before, by the way, as a quick aside, thank God that the University of North Carolina doesn't care as much about football, because if they did,
Scary.
they might be one of the 5 best programs in America on an annual basis, because that state, the state of North Carolina, loves, with a capital LOVES, high school football. Mm-hmm. And they churn out talent. But their flagship university is like, Michael Jordan went here.
We win national championships in this sport.
And sometimes I go, yeah, Lawrence Taylor went there too.
And they're like, who?
No, I think they know Lawrence. That's about it, though. Yes, he did. That's what they'll say. Yes, he did.
Once upon a time.
Oh, boy, scary. Anyway.
But
to come back to it for the Kentucky game, you're right. That's a huge 1-0 start for the team that wins that game, and for the team that loses it, especially if it's the kind of game we think it's going to be, which of late have been gritty and kind of ugly
games. Yeah. And I have a theory here about the Kentucky game too, or at least how South Carolina fans might perceive Kentucky. You tell me if this is true or not, because obviously you have lived this. But if Kentucky did not, the Kentucky being a basketball school makes losing to them more insulting. Because if they just did not have a basketball program at all, Kentucky basketball,
if it was just an average program,
if it is not the behemoth it is right now, would the fan base be so insulted to lose to Kentucky? Because if you look at it, like in the last 2 decades, they've had some various degrees of success, similar to what South Carolina's had. Like Mark Stoops has gotten them some 10-win seasons, which to them is it's the greatest thing ever. But if they didn't have a program like that in basketball,
I don't know.
Would it make it less? I
see what you're asking, and there's part of me that wants to say yes, but there's another part of me that might say no, if only because if they didn't, and they didn't take football very seriously, you'd be like, why do we keep losing to this guy?
My theory is I think they do take football pretty seriously.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think they do.
It just pales in comparison to what that behemoth they have like right down the road.
I mean, Kentucky fans like to travel, and basketball's different. But I'll be honest with you, man. Kentucky, and maybe it's because their blue stands out really nicely against garnet and black. But when they bring people here, it's not like a smattering of fans. Some years it may be bigger than others in terms of how well they're playing.
Right. Sure, the Rich Brooks years.
There's a couple of times under Coach Brooks when they were okay, and then the Joker Phillips years were not so good, and again, hell, how long has Stoops been there now? This is like year 12 or something.
In Kentucky football years, it's like 30.
I don't know how long it is, but it's a long time. But I don't know. I get where you're going with that question, but I'm not sure how to answer it, because maybe it's like, that's a basketball school.
It's a hard world to envision them not being associated.
But if they were Missouri, they don't like Carolina doesn't like losing to Missouri, and they're not a basketball school. They just don't like losing to them. Speaking of basketball, got a quick note on Dawn Staley's team, and the latest Baseball America projections are out for the NCAAs. We'll tell you where Carolina is projected to play coming up. You know, there's so many great things to love about Cato's Power Equipment and our buddy Ben Cato, but one of the things is advice. I say it's sales, service, advice. Now listen, sales and service, you mean they make money. Advice might mean that they're trying to save you some money. And one of the things Ben wants to remind you is that grass growth is up because of the rain more than 125%. See, this is what people do in his business. And he wants to remind you, don't go out and cut your really wet grass. It's really bad for your mower. He says they'll sell you a replacement belt. You know, they'll get you back up and going. But if you just show a little bit of patience, then you're good to go. So just remember things like that. Plus, that right now, if you do need another mower, or maybe you're in the business, you got one that's down for a bit, $50 daily push mower rentals. You just need to get a few things done for your business, whatever it might be around the yard. CatosPowerEquipment.com is the website, 4012 West Beltline Boulevard. Great people at Cato's. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Wednesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. One quick note, it has been announced today that Carolina women's basketball will open their season. Now, it hasn't been announced by Carolina. It's been announced by the folks that are putting this on in Vegas. They will play Michigan on November 4th to start the regular season. So Carolina, Michigan in Vegas on November 4th. So I know the FAMs like to travel, and they'll go wherever. So following the team to Vegas, I don't know where.
Spoiling us. Paris last year, Vegas this year.
That's not bad.
I could get into that. I am into that. That's awesome.
And if you
I was trying to weasel my way over there. That's
don't
great.
they? One of those places has like an Eiffel Tower replica, right? So if you didn't get to go to Paris, right, you can.
Literally a hotel, completely Parisian themed.
Yeah. So,
the entire thing.
Right.
From the Eiffel Tower and all.
You may as well do it.
Brunch next to that once. It was really cool.
We got an Eiffel Tower at Epcot. You got one in Vegas. That's not bad.
A lot of There's one in Paris, Tennessee. They do have an Eiffel Tower replica out there.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's in the middle of nowhere. There is nothing else in that town.
Yeah, where
there are like dozens of people.
Where is Paris, Tennessee?
It is over on the west side of Tennessee. Actually, like it's decently populated, but it's very spread out.
Like near Jackson, like over that way?
Like closer to Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Jackson's a pretty good size
football
town.
Powerhouse. They are a football machine.
What would you say? Jackson's like Florence big. I mean, that's pretty good size town.
Ooh, that's a really good comparison. Jackson is Florence big. Maybe a little bigger in population.
Because don't they even have, or at least they used to have, a AA baseball team?
Still do.
Okay.
I think they're still the Jacks. They used to be the West Tennessee Jacks for a while, but they've always been the Arizona Diamondbacks affiliate. Christian Walker, no, he didn't come up through the Diamondbacks. Just kidding.
Yeah, not a AA.
Yeah, he would have been there for AA. But they've always been a Diamondbacks affiliate. A nice little ballpark right next to the interstate.
Yeah. There you go.
There is not much else.
Anyway, Carolina women in Vegas, November 4th against Michigan. I don't know if that's written in like ink, stone, pencil, but it's on the interwebs earlier. Officially. And the reason I know is because David Cloninger put it out. In fact, I'll go back and find it just to make sure that I get it right. But I'll do that for you in just a second. So we'll follow up with that. Next, though, let me get to Teddy Cahill and his team at Baseball America putting out their projections. I know the D1 boys were doing their podcast earlier, so I have not yet seen their projections in full. As you might expect, after last weekend's sweep at the hands of Georgia, South Carolina no longer a host. In fact, no longer a 2 seed in the projected field of 64. South Carolina is now projected as the 3 seed in a Santa Barbara regional with UC Santa Barbara as the host and the number 16 national seed. Arizona the 2, Carolina the 3, Fresno State the 4. So in that group, if that were to hold, you'd have 3 programs that have won the College World Series played each other. And, of course, Carolina and Arizona faced off in the 2012 finals with Arizona winning that one. I don't know enough about Santa Barbara. I know Arizona is having a good season in the Pac-12. I know Oregon State is having a good season in the Pac-12, and I believe he's got Oregon State hosting as the number 13. A couple other. I think Oregon is Oregon's projected to go to Stillwater, but Arizona's having a good year. I think Oregon State, maybe then Arizona, then the Ducks having the best seasons. You mentioned a couple weeks ago that UCLA is just having a terrible time of it this year.
They're 16 and 30.
Yeah, it's just odd.
Last week.
It's just odd. I don't know what's up there because that's just sometimes it happens. That's just it. I mean, sometimes you just don't get those dudes.
College sports can be so cyclical.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole ain't walking through that door.
No,
not.
So. And look, this is a projection. I will also tell you let me read you what Teddy said in his Bubble Watch column. And for what it's worth, South Carolina is not on the bubble, in Teddy Cahill's opinion. He has different tiers for each conference. He has locks, he has should be in, and then he has work to do. And for the Southeastern Conference, his locks are Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. The work to do, Alabama, Florida, LSU, Ole Miss, Vandy, should be in South Carolina. And of the Gamecocks, he writes the following. The Gamecocks last weekend were swept at home by Georgia, and that probably dashed their hosting hopes, though a series win this weekend would put them back in the mix. They don't need to sweat things because of their metrics, but I'm not locking them up without 14 SEC wins. They can hit that number with one win this weekend at Tennessee. So they don't need to sweat it, Teddy Cahill says. I think he's right. I know you believe he's right, as does Mitch Light of The Athletic, and I'm sure there are others. Again, we'll talk with Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball on the program coming up on Friday afternoon. So looking forward to talking with Aaron, and we'll get their projections in just a little bit. So they don't need to sweat it because of their metrics. That's just it. The bubble teams, by the way, let me get back to that for you if I can find it, Elijah. And I'm trying to go as fast as I can on live radio.
The bubble's there somewhere.
But the so-called bubble team, Florida, again, was one of those bubble teams. Now I can't find it. I had it somewhere on here. But, oh, wait, it's on this one. Never mind. Hang on.
I've seen the last four in.
Yeah, here we go. Last four in, Virginia Tech, James Madison. I was looking at the wrong column. Virginia Tech, James Madison, Indiana, UCF. Those are the last four in. The first four out, St. John's, Louisville, LSU, and Illinois. The next four out, College of Charleston, Ole Miss, Kansas, and California. So the Gamecocks not, at least in Teddy Cahill's opinion, not on the bubble at this point. Again, you go get swept at Tennessee, you don't win next week in your game in Hoover. I could hold open a very, 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 very slim chance that South Carolina doesn't make it. But again, we've gone over the resume a lot. You've got a lot of quality wins. You've played a lot of quality games. You will be rewarded for those things. To what degree, I don't know. I thought it was interesting that Coach Tanner, who, again, for 4 seasons was on the selection committee, twice he was the chair. And you and I talked about this too. He said, I don't like the fact that committees use the last 10. And he didn't say this, but I will. I sometimes feel like the last 10 part isn't as much about whether or not you're going to make it. It's how they seed you going in.
Yes. Because
they do have to seed this tournament.
Yeah.
The same thing with basketball. Now, it could be a defining factor. Like, well, they're coming limping in, and I don't know if we want that.
It could be the difference between being a 2 seed and a 3 seed.
Could, yeah, but I see that more as a seeding metric than I do an entrance metric, if you will. Mm-hmm. So,
which if we had them for another hour, I would definitely have gone in on some of that because I love seeding tournaments. I love this type of stuff, and that would be one of those things. It's like, how would you weight what you're doing in the last 10 in a sport of baseball, more specifically baseball, that it can change like that. You know, you can figure something out and go crazy out of nowhere. How many teams limp into the Major League Baseball playoffs every year and end up making a run to the World Series? Philadelphia Phillies, or not Phillies, but like the Nationals in the year they won the World Series. Right. You know, I mean, there are a lot of instances where teams go completely limping going into the playoffs, and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss a few years ago. Ole Miss was a 3 seed that won the College World Series. You know,
limped in.
Yeah, I mean, when Fresno State won, they were a 4. I think it was like 15 years ago now, but I mean, nevertheless, not 15 years, 17 years ago.
That was a fun one.
Yeah. But they were a 4 seed.
They had to win their conference tournament to get in.
I mean, you know, so is it doable? Yeah. Is it likely? Well, that's maybe another discussion. Come back on the other side of the break. Again, looks like we're inching closer to a proposed settlement in the House versus NCAA case. That's the NIL back pay case, but it also has implications on the future. What might that future look like? Especially as it relates to schools like Carolina. We'll get you some details on what Ross Dellinger wrote about today as the postgame show continues.
Going into last month, I had a goal, and that was to get in better shape to be able to feel better about myself physically. And my friends at Columbia Seeker for Weight Loss did numbers with me in that regard. I wanted to lose 15 pounds. I wanted to start getting in that better shape, and I was able to achieve that with them. And I actually went above and beyond. I've dropped 20 pounds since the beginning of last month, and it's just as easy. If you want to contact my man Paul Grant and Shaylin over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, 803-824-4210. You can do a free consultation. Look, it's not overly complicated. It doesn't involve pills. It doesn't involve any type of shots. It's really personalized, and it helps you also establish better habits for just later on in life for a sustainable, healthy lifestyle. Again, 803-824-4210 or at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss to learn the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and start your own success story. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon, and we're going to start with a big one in Lexington County. Over on US 378 near Mineral Springs Road, we have an accident that has caused some pretty severe traffic back up, almost at a standstill right now. Again, that's at US 378 near Mineral Springs Road. We got others going around here too. One more in Lexington County, one on 26 westbound. That's over at St. Andrews Road near exit 106. And here in Richland County, we have 3 to report to you. One on Bull Street near Jefferson Street. Traffic minimal over there. One on Lower Richland Boulevard at Garner's Ferry Road, and one on Hard Scrabble Road at Summit Parkway.
Welcome back in. We will get into the Ross Dellinger Yahoo Sports story on what a settlement in the House case could look like in terms of altering the dynamics of college athletics. Let me tell you real quick, though, that Carolina baseball did announce one starting pitcher Thursday night, tomorrow night, I guess now, tomorrow night. It will be Ty Good. 5-1 with a 3.21 and 47 2/3, 63 strikeouts to 21 walks. Chris Stamos will go for Tennessee. He's a veteran left-hander. Tennessee has announced all of their starters. Drew Beam on Friday, Xander Sechrest on Saturday afternoon. Carolina Friday and Saturday, TBA. And, we talked with Derek Scott about that yesterday, Elijah, that, and then Derek made a good point, because I know you and I had said, and we'd heard from some callers on Monday, you got to start Gainey on Saturday again. And Derek didn't disagree with that theoretically, but said, but what if you need Garrett to close out a game and you know how good he is, Thursday or Friday, then he's not starting on Saturday if you feel strongly that he's going to, secure a win.
And securing a win is a big
well, you
deal.
can't. Yeah, I mean, listen, you should never get swept, and it's rare for Carolina baseball, and it's a horrible moment in time for you to have been swept, because it knocked you out of hosting. But go have a good weekend, and maybe you get that back. Maybe you don't. I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is, you and I talked about it. Hey, if you could find a way to go 5-4 in your last 9, then you're going to host. Well, it's going to take sweeping. So
take sweeping the number one team in the country.
That's probably not going to happen
on the road.
But don't get swept again. Don't get swept.
Yeah. Don't go into Hoover on a 6-game losing streak and having to figure it out at a place where historically it has been your boogeyman of the postseason.
So that's all we know for now, is that Ty Good will start tomorrow night, and then we'll just see how it goes. And then the Gamecocks will start play at the SEC tournament on Tuesday. So you would pretty much figure anybody that throws more than, say, 50 or 60 pitches this weekend isn't going to pitch on Tuesday. Maybe, and I don't think you're using Ty on Tuesday if you throw him, because I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. We can sit here and do that all day.
Oh, we could plan the entire weekend how you're going to use the arms, and that might have to get scrapped in the first 4.5 innings.
So I'm not here for that. Ty Good will start tomorrow.
See, I love making plans only to scrap them a day later.
Sure.
I love it. It's great. I look forward to it. Every day I make plans.
Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports put out a very lengthy piece this morning on what a potential settlement in the House versus NCAA case could look like. Let me read verbatim because it's interesting, and I'd rather do that for you, and then we'll discuss. He says a 2-page document was circulated among Power Conference presidents and administrators on Tuesday as ACC leaders met at their annual spring meetings in Florida. The document, details terms of a potential settlement in the House, Hubbard, and Carter antitrust cases, a trio of legal challenges, he writes, brought against the NCAA and its 5 power conferences seeking back pay for various athlete compensation. The settlement consists of 3 main concepts: billions in back damages, a new compensation model permitting schools to share as much as $22 million annually with athletes in a capped system, and an overhaul of the NCAA scholarship and roster structure. Let's start with the first point there. The amount that is being discussed, from what the document says, according to Ross, is $2.776 billion. Let's call it 2.8. So $2.8 billion that would be paid out over a 10-year period. How do they come up with that money, you might ask? Here's how. 60% of the money will come from a reduction in distribution to member schools. And there's a formula for that. The NCAA will then be responsible for the remaining 40% through other means. And he says that could include cash reserves, other forms of income, and a reduction of operating expense of the association nationally to the tune of $18 million. Obviously, the bulk of the number or of the money that the NCAA distributes comes from the NCAA men's basketball tournament. As Coach Tanner pointed out to us in the last hour, if you were with us, and he did it on 2 different occasions, this would be permissive, he said. And I thought that was interesting, Elijah. Like a lot of these state laws, it's permissive, not mandatory, which is why I always joke, and I'm glad Ray didn't do this, and I'm glad Graham Neff hasn't done this or Matt Hogue, like Ross Bjork did in Texas. Hey, I'm just trying to follow the law. No, dude, you're not going to jail if you don't do it. Okay? That's what he framed it. Yeah, he really did. He was like, hey, if we don't do what this law allows, we're going to jail. It's like, no. You're not going to jail.
At all.
For that. If you want to do it, they'll let you.
That's all it is.
If you don't want to do it, you're not going to jail. But he did. We're just trying to comply with the law. No, stop it. Just stop it.
Well, that allowed you to do it if you wanted to. You could still turn it down if you desired.
He was serious, too. They have a law in Ohio yet, by the way, now that he's up at Ohio State?
Maybe not yet.
He'll write that law, too, and then tell you he's trying to comply with the law.
Definition of failing upward, Ross Bjork.
School distributions would be reduced, says, again, in terms of how to pay for this, by about 20% over the decade that they would have to pay this back, which to each school in the power conferences really wouldn't be that much, up to about $2 million per year. So not a giant hit to the vast majority of schools in the power leagues. And again, if you're wondering, Carolina, and I'm just ballparking it, Carolina annual revenues around $150 million. So, you'd lose a couple million potentially from the NCAA distribution. So you're going to have to find a way to make it up, because $2 million is still $2 million.
It can be made up. Yeah.
But
it's not insurmountable.
But in terms of a percentage of your budget. Now, the next part, and again, this is where Coach Tanner talked about permissive, is that schools could have a capped number of up to, and they don't know yet, but in the 20 to 25 million range, that would be an annual amount used to pay NIL out of your own budget. And again, this would be part of a settlement. So while it wouldn't be mandatory, as he said, let's face it though, permissive, not mandatory. But it's kind of like we said about like the Missouri baseball series. It might not be a must-win series.
You better.
But it's a better win series.
It's how good do you want your season to be series. This is how good do you want your programs to be.
So
permissive law.
If they let you use up to 20, 22, 25 million for NIL purposes out of your budget, my suggestion would be not just to South Carolina, but to every school that can. You better.
Use every penny.
Yeah.
If you leave anything on the table, you can't be upset with the results.
The other thing that's permissive would be the elimination of scholarship limitations. And, of course, the most ludicrous one, especially for baseball schools, is 11.7. Again, it used to be 13 scholarships, and for whatever reason, like 20-something years ago, 30 years ago now, whatever it was, the NCAA just said, we're going to cut it by 10%. Why? Because we feel like it. And that's why you got a dumb number like 11.7. This would this settlement, again, none of this is done yet, would allow schools to basically have open-ended scholarships. As many as you want to fund. As Ray said, it won't be cheap, but it'd be better than what you got right now. So, especially, again, with baseball, which has over 30 players and 11.7 scholarships, and everybody's got to get a little something.
Or some of your best players are walk-ons.
We'll keep you updated with how that goes in the coming weeks. The NFL made big news today. Big news today. We will tell you what that news is coming up. Welcome back into the postgame show. Wednesday afternoon, Jay and Elijah with you. All right, so the NFL made some news today, but really so did its newest television partner. That's the really big news. The NFL and Netflix announced today that not only will Netflix get games this season, but Netflix is going to have a Christmas Day doubleheader of NFL action. It will be the Chiefs taking on the Steelers. Then the Ravens take on the Texans. Chiefs and Steelers on Christmas on Netflix. Now, a gajillion people have Netflix these days. But let me tell you, everybody has broadcast television. This is a bold, bold move. And you will get people to subscribe to Netflix for this if you don't already.
Which is why if you're Netflix, you dump the Brinks truck right next to the NFL headquarters.
I have not yet. In this particular article I have, it does not give me the amount. I know the reason it was announced today, Netflix had like their quarterly report today. By the way, quick aside, and I'd love to talk more about this, and I might later in the show. Netflix at this same announcement also announced, as we already knew this, but now it's been officially official, Happy Gilmore 2
nice.
will be on Netflix next year sometime, but Sandler's working on that. You realize Sandler has a $250 million deal with Netflix?
I didn't realize it was that lucrative.
$250 million they paid him to come up with what, and then there's whatever the number is of either his stand-up, movies he writes, movies he produces, movie he stars in, all the above.
They're about 20 years too late on that one for it to be worth $250 million.
But anyway, Netflix, and there is already a discussion that Netflix will have games, don't know when or what yet, in 25 and 26. So, we knew that Netflix was going to get in, but we didn't know how. And again, Netflix had like some kind of tennis thing.
Yeah.
That was something, I forget what it was. And they're going to have the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, wink, wink fight. I just air quoted later this summer. So you have exhibition tennis and you have exhibition boxing as you try to get into live sports. And so then you think the next step is like, I don't know, the pickleball league or lacrosse. Nope. Christmas Day NFL with the bleeping Chiefs and Steelers.
That's a big jump.
I mean, that's just, can you make a bigger jump? I mean, unless you had like the Cowboys and the Eagles or something.
Or the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Like,
the broadcast
that'll be
rights
next,
to the
right?
Super Bowl.
Like Netflix is sitting on so much cash, they'd go to the NFL. Hey, we're going to do the Super Bowl. What do you think? Yeah. You're like that, again, the scene in Vacation. How much is this going to cost? How much you got? No, I'm asking how much it's going to cost. I'm asking you how much you got.
We're tired of producing these awful reality television shows, but we think we have enough money to be able to get you a Super Bowl.
And listen, having Lamar and CJ in another game on Christmas is not bad.
A playoff rematch. Like
Could,
that is a playoff rematch.
Let's just hope both those teams are headed toward. I think they should be.
Or stay healthy.
But this is a really big deal. The NFL didn't like scheduling on Christmas. That was always sort of the NBA's day. And then the TV people came up to them and said, hey, we'd like to pay you a little bit extra if you'll play on Christmas. NFL was like, we don't really like making a lot of money, but okay, twist our arm.
Fine, we'll make more money.
But now on Netflix. So big deal, man.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It makes me more curious what the production's going to be like. If you're Netflix, do you try to go too outside the box in terms of your production, in terms of broadcasting, in terms of securing certain access? Because, one show.
My gut tells me that you probably just hire out, a CBS crew, a Fox crew, some combination of that you don't go out and do it totally on your, because you don't have anything to practice with in terms of how you wouldn't, you know what I'm saying?
Because in how much would you be able to afford in terms of getting those people on? Because I mean, you are paying Adam Sandler $250 million. You might as well have Adam Sandler call the game.
Hey, don't put it past him, dude.
That's what I'm saying too. I mean, would you even have the budget to not only just get the rights to the game, but to be able to get the broadcasters, the production crew? Are you trying to do anything out of the ordinary? I mean, Netflix's production for some of their reality shows are really good, like the quarterback show they did, where they followed around Kirk Cousins and Patrick Mahomes and Marcus Mariota of all people for an entire season. Do you do stuff like that leading up to it? I mean,
they'll probably tell us at some point. You would think that there would be a little something extra
to differentiate it.
Yeah, you know? I mean, it's a Christmas broadcast, so even if it was on network television, you know, it's maybe you want to do a little something. Yeah, maybe Santa shows up. Maybe
that's why they don't have it in Philadelphia.
Maybe they have a reindeer. I don't know. Maybe Will Ferrell shows up and does the game as Buddy the entire time. Maybe Will's on the sideline as the reporter. Who knows? Headlines coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Center, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you that are causing some delays on the roadways. But what we're going to do is start off with the good news, and that is that we have 2 accidents cleared in Lexington County that were causing some pretty decent traffic backups in the last hour. One was on I-26 westbound at St. Andrews Road near exit 106. The other one was on US 378 near Mineral Springs Road. Those accidents have been cleared, and traffic is running a lot more smoothly through there. Still have one more accident causing issues in Richland County. That's going to be on Hardscrabble Road at Summit Parkway.
It is 5 o'clock news time. It's also the final hour of the postgame show on this Wednesday alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Got a lot to get to here in the headlines segment. We'll start locally. First with some football news. South Carolina at Kentucky. It was announced today will be the ABC SEC game of the week. That's a September 7, 3:30 start from Commonwealth Stadium. So the first official conference game with ABC as the new presenting broadcaster will be Carolina, Kentucky. The first SEC game of the week is officially Florida hosting Miami, but again, that's not a conference game. So it doesn't really count. Carolina, Kentucky, the first conference game. That's a big game. We talked about it earlier. It's a big game. It's not, it's not Georgia, Florida, or Bama, LSU. I get it. But in terms of these two schools, again, there's going to be a very happy team that's 1-0 in conference play coming out of that one.
Especially considering what their schedules, because both of them look like after that week.
Women's basketball, it was announced today, will be playing in the Hall of Fame series in Las Vegas. I don't know which Hall of Fame. It's just got a big ball on it, and it says Hall of Fame Las Vegas. I don't know, but it's a big game for Carolina. Dawn Staley's team will take on Michigan. There's a men's game that day as well, and that will be Texas and Ohio State.
Oh, wow.
For the men.
Would be a good football and a good basketball game on the men's side.
If you're interested in going, by the way, the T-Mobile Arena website, that's where the game will be in Vegas.
Home of the Golden Knights.
Has tickets going on sale May 21st. So, again, you fams that like to travel, Vegas, baby.
That's right. A little easier of a flight than Paris, can confirm.
And lots of flights to Vegas. Lots of flights.
There's never a shortage.
Their airport's cool. I just remember the one thing I remember about their airport.
So much fun.
It's been a while since I've been, but like they had all the like celebrities that do shows in Vegas, like welcoming you to Vegas, like while you're on the moving sidewalk and stuff. Like, hi, it's Mel Torme. Welcome to Las Vegas. And I was like, hey, thanks, Mel. It's kind of cool. Wayne Newton did one. And there's others. I don't know. I was like, this is nice.
Keep on rotators. Yeah.
I felt very welcome. It made me want to spend money.
Which is the whole goal, and to keep spending. And maybe it hopes at winning some. It works.
Gamecock baseball news. Only one starting pitcher announced for South Carolina this weekend. And Coach Kingston hinted at this when he was on with us on this program Monday. That we'll probably let you know when we're on the way to Knoxville. And they did let us know that Ty Good will start tomorrow night against Chris Stamos. Beyond that, South Carolina has not announced any other starting pitcher, primarily, we believe, because they need to get through tomorrow night first.
Yeah, I genuinely believe they don't know because they want to see exactly if they're in a position to win the game and you need Garrett Gainey to give you 3 innings. Winning one game here is incredibly important.
It is.
So if you can secure at least one win and say, hey, forget it. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow when the next game is. You do it. Your season could really benefit.
Ty Good is 5-1 with a 3.21, 47 2/3, 63 strikeouts to 21 walks. Chris Stamos is a lefty. He's 3-0 with a 3.33, only 24 1/3. So he's not been used like their other two starters.
No relation to John, right?
Not that I know of, sir.
Okay.
Not that I know of. You can look that up probably. 27 strikeouts to 12 walks. Drew Beam will start Friday for Tennessee. He's 7-2 with a 3.75. Xander Sechrist, a senior lefty, will start Saturday afternoon. That's a 1 o'clock start on Saturday. He's 1-1 with a 4.57. Again, Carolina TBA Friday and Saturday. Thursday, Friday, 6:30 first pitch, so 6:15 air here on the network. Saturday is a 1 o'clock first pitch with a 12:45 airtime. Derek and Stewart on the call. And we'll effort Coach Lake tomorrow. And Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball will be with us on Friday's program. So a lot of baseball coming up. Speaking of baseball, the Baseball America projections are out for the week, and South Carolina has been projected to go into the Santa Barbara Regional with the Gauchos as the 1 seed, Arizona the 2, Carolina the 3, Fresno State the 4. Those are projections, but that's at least one. And Teddy Cahill of Baseball America did say he believes Carolina has all but assured itself of a berth in the NCAA tournament. He said he'd like one more conference win to call them a lock. But even if they don't get that, he says their metrics are pretty good.
He's almost got them.
His point was if they had a 14th win coming out of the weekend, they're a lock. So, and they're not on the bubble. But, then he would, because he's got them in the should be in category, not the there's work to do category. So
I did see D1 Baseball did have some projections. I want to see I double check the date to make sure this is the right ones.
Right.
This did come out today as well.
Yeah, they were putting theirs out during the afternoon. Yeah, so I haven't seen those yet.
Oh, would you like to guess what region they're in?
Knowing the D1 guys, they've got them in, again. And I'm going to say either Clemson, Winston-Salem, or Chapel Hill.
Clemson.
Yeah.
With College of Charleston as the 3.
See, I don't know that the committee does that, and I can't wait to talk with Aaron.
They do.
I can't wait to talk with Aaron about because what they do at D1, they have a live podcast on Wednesday, and Aaron Fitt and Kendall Rogers and Mark Etheridge literally spend about an hour and a half coming up with their projections for the week. And I've watched it a couple of times. I mean, you got to really love college baseball because they get into the nitty gritty of it.
Got to field a tournament, yeah.
But I almost, again, we've known Aaron around here a long time. I'm going to say, all right, to what degree did you guys use snark as a talking point?
Did you realize that it was as close to happening anyway and said, oh, we want this to happen. We're going to maybe move South Carolina up or down to get them into where they're playing Clemson, and maybe move College of Charleston up or down to make sure they get in.
So many storylines. If that were to hold, then not only do you have Carolina going to Clemson, but Charleston going to Clemson. But then you've got former Gamecock head coach Chad Holbrook facing current Gamecock head coach Mark Kingston. And just to remind all of you, Mark Kingston and Chad Holbrook were teammates at Chapel Hill in the early 90s. It's just so many dynamic. Who's the 4 in that?
Wright State.
Wright State's probably be like,
hi.
Like the gif,
Wright
the gif with like the guy eating popcorn. There's a bunch of those. That's what Wright State's doing.
Here for the drama.
They're just here. Yeah.
They're not going to be here playing baseball for a long time, but they're here for the drama that will ensue.
That's what that would be. I don't think they'll do that.
Oh, I hope they do. I hope so.
But I don't know. Listen, they try to regionalize and save some money, but there again, we talked about how they projected Oregon State to come to Columbia. Now Oregon State's a host, but they've got Carolina going to California. I don't know.
That'd be quite the flight.
But again, a slight degree of snark.
Snark or antagonistic?
Either way.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I think they know what they're doing a little bit there. Because you know what I would be doing in that
They
situation?
know their audience.
The exact same damn thing.
They know their audience.
I would put them in the same group. For the storylines. Because that would be fun.
Yeah. A couple of other things to get to here. We'll get. By the way, Coach Tanner was on with Elijah and me earlier in the 3 o'clock hour. If you missed it, we're going to have a little bit of what Coach had to say coming up for you in just a bit. Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day, Ronel Blanco has been suspended 10 games for a foreign substance on his glove. The Astros pitcher was ejected last night. According to some reports, first base umpire Eric Bacchus said, quote, "I felt something inside the glove. It was the stickiest stuff I've felt on a glove since we've been doing this for a few years now." Blanco, for what it's worth, said it was nothing illegal. Quote, "Just probably rosin I put on my left arm. Maybe because of the sweat, it got into the glove, and that's maybe what they found." I think an umpire, dude, rosin bags really don't provide nearly enough sticky anyway.
Right.
Joe Espada added when he went to the mound, he saw white powder inside Blanco's glove.
Uh-oh.
You're not allowed to use rosin on your non-pitching hand. That's what it looked like to me, he said. Anyway, 10 games. So, could be worse. Could be worse. The Braves blanked the Cubs for the second straight night last night, this time winning 7-0. Game 3 tonight in Atlanta sees Javier Assad go for the Cubs, 3-0 with a 1.70 against Charlie Morton, 3-0 with a 3.14. Braves are 2 back of the Philadelphia Phillies in the East. Atlanta playing very good ball at home. They are 15-4.
They are.
Yeah.
And Matt Olson, home run yesterday, maybe getting his swagger back a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, he needed that one.
A couple of those guys in that lineup.
Yeah, he needed that. We told you earlier that the NFL and Netflix announced that the streaming service will enter into the live sports landscape in a big way. Christmas Day, Netflix will have a doubleheader. So, again, get your Netflix subscription ready to go. Or give it as a gift Christmas morning. Yeah, that'd be something nice.
That'd be a fun gift that you could use that day.
Right then. You know, it's, you always want to use something right away, right? It'll be the Chiefs and the Steelers, and then the Ravens and the Texans. I mean, the Chiefs and the Steelers on Christmas Day on Netflix. Again, that's a big deal. I don't know. I'm going to find out. I haven't looked yet. I got to find out what it is that Netflix is paying. Speaking of the NFL, the full schedule release will be tonight. If you are interested in those things, I think each team, the NFL is having them do some kind of cool like schedule release video. I probably will not be watching my Denver Broncos schedule release or the Carolina Panthers schedule release, but I do know one Carolina Panther game. They're part of the international series. Here's how it looks. I'll get you that one in a second because I have commentary. The full slate of international games: Green Bay against Philadelphia in Sao Paulo. That's at Corinthians Stadium. Corinthians is one of the big Brazilian soccer clubs. That's week 1. That's a nice trip.
A couple bucks in the Bible.
Green Bay fans are probably like, man, can't y'all get that game scheduled for us in like December? We can get the heck out and go to Brazil. You know,
feel a little nicer. Coincide.
It's still nice weather in Wisconsin the first week of September, right? It's nice. The Jets and the Vikings will play at Tottenham in week 5. Yeah, Jets, Tottenham. That feels about right. No, I'm sorry, Tottenham.
Boo.
I'm sorry, Tottenham fans.
Boo.
Sorry, not
dump
sorry.
that audio right now.
Jacksonville will play the Bears also at Tottenham. That'll be week 6. So the following week. So Tottenham gets 2 games in a row. And the London Jaguars. No, they're still the Jacksonville Jaguars.
For now.
The Jacksonville folk did to say they're going to get their stadium funding. So they're going to still be the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Don't ask them when.
Yeah, around 27. The Jags go back to London because, again, London Jaguars. They'll take on the Patriots at Wembley. Jags would be like, again, just hang. That's week 7. So the Jags are hanging around. This is not, again, London Jaguars is.
It's tongue in cheek.
It's going to be a
lot
thing.
Of truth to that. They played 2 games there last year too.
Well, you know, their owner owns Fulham, which is one of London's soccer teams. Not one of the big soccer teams, but
which is why they don't host any of those.
Yeah, well, their place is tiny. They couldn't host a football game. And then finally, the Giants and the Panthers from Munich. Last year, Munich got the Chiefs and the Dolphins. And so there's an overcorrection from the NFL this year, and now they're going to get the Giants and the Panthers. They're like, we really spoiled you last year, so here's what the other side looks like. It's no mid-level game this year.
We want you to see the ultimate highs of this sport and the worst of lows.
Yeah, so that'll be Week 10, Giants and Panthers. That could be fun. You Panther fans, head over to Munich.
The trip would be fun. I think the game would be fun.
No, the game. I
wouldn't fun.
I wouldn't even go to. I might just, I wouldn't even go to the game. I'd just go to Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Munich in the fall. I bet it's really nice over there.
That's wonderful, actually.
Yeah. Week 10.
Sign me up.
There you go. That's our integrated media headlines of the day. Speaking of, things like streaming services, get them all hooked into one place with our good friends at Integrated Media. If it's time for you to cut the cord, they're ready to help you out, get you ready for all the baseball and football coming up for you for the months to come, and so much more. 803-948-8327 for all your home entertainment needs and so much more. Call my very good friends at Integrated Media. Come back on the other side. Coach Ray Tanner joined Elijah and me. Some of the highlights of what Coach had to say around Gamecock sports when the postgame show continues.
20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Coach Ray Tanner joined Elijah and me in the 3 o'clock hour, not coming up some highlights. But in the 3 o'clock hour, we talked about a lot of things. Baseball, NIL, got a good Adrian Morales story in. Talked a little hoops a lot with Coach. But we did focus on baseball in the first portion of the interview, and obviously, Coach Tanner has a wealth of experience as a very successful baseball coach. And with some of the struggles pitching-wise that are going on right now, Ray gave us his take on how to work your way through some of that.
Well, it's tough. I mean, because for the majority of our season this year, you go back to the pitching staff, was not maybe a staff that was highly regarded in the SEC, but yet we had pitched very well and had given the team an opportunity to win from a pitching standpoint, and the jobs that Matt Williams had done. But the pitchers had been outstanding for the most part. And recently, last 3-4 weeks, they haven't been quite as good. And that's part of it. It happens. I mean, you can look around this league. It's not a league that you can survive unless you're really close to your best. You can look at the season LSU's having. They're trying to fight their way out. Florida is really a good team. There's no question about it. Look where they are today. So those things do happen, and you don't want them to. You want to stay ahead of the curve a little bit. You're not going to go undefeated. I know there's been some good teams that have won 20 or a few more than that at times, but majority of teams are fighting to get in a position, number one, to host, but certainly to get into a postseason play. And going through this league is a gauntlet. And that's, we got to bounce back now. We're going to Knoxville, to, one of the better teams in the country. But, that's, those are challenges, but certainly great opportunities as well. And hopefully we'll play really well this weekend.
So there you go. Good stuff from Coach. And, as we talked about with Mark on Monday, I mean, Dylan Eskew, shuts out the number one team in the country. And then 3 weeks later can barely find the strike zone. And as Coach said, it happens. Does that mean that you can have a reversal this quickly this weekend? Don't know. Again, if you've just tuned in, Ty Good is the only pitcher that Mark and Matt have named as a starter. Friday and Saturday are TBA. Coach Vitello did go ahead and name his complete rotation, although there's one guy with very little starting experience. So, does that play into Carolina's hands? I don't know. Both these teams can score a lot of runs. But Tennessee, I think, is 31-3 at home.
They don't lose at that park.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, I don't know. But Carolina projected as a 3 seed by Baseball America and a 2 seed by Division I, by D1 baseball. So, but the Baseball America guys, Teddy Cahill and his team, have Carolina flying all the way out to Santa Barbara. Aaron and Mark and Kendall have them driving up the road to Pickens County, to Doug Kingsmore Stadium, to be the 2 seed against Clemson.
A wee bit different of a travel plan.
Can it be any more? I mean, that's not what Carolina wants, man.
Well, to play in Clemson
to go to Clemson. They don't. The Gamecocks don't want that.
They'd rather travel.
The players probably don't care.
3 time zones.
The players probably don't care. I don't think fans might tell you they want. I don't think they do. It was different when Clemson came here for a regional in 12, and I think that game one of those games went 12 innings. That was a game. That was a day. And Carolina won, and again went on to play for a title again. But that was something else, man. That was something else.
The atmosphere for if they were to get to the final, that regional.
I don't think South Carolina wants to go to any of the regionals that are going to be close to here. Again, you can't go. They don't send you in regionals to a team if your conference if a team in your conference is hosting. So they wouldn't go to Athens.
No.
They wouldn't go to Knoxville. But again, around here, Clemson's going to host, Wake is going to host, and North Carolina's going to host. And I really do more. I envision them going to one of those 3 relative to having them fly all the way to Santa Barbara. Now, they might. And honestly, again, South Carolina going out to Santa Barbara, again, I could be dead. I'm not saying, they'll easily win that regional. I don't mean it that way, but
your chances a little more.
Yeah, well, I think everything about it, there's like almost no pressure there. There'd be so much more pressure potentially in Clemson
maybe on both schools or up in Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think anybody wants any part of Wake Forest right now.
Or Chase Burns specifically.
Yeah. I mean, that dude, he's just an automatic win, right?
16 strikeouts against one of the best, hitting lineups in the country.
So
a statement. That is a statement.
speaking of that, the selection committee cut here, please. Coach Tanner, for 4 years, was on the baseball selection committee. Twice he chaired it. Elijah asked him, as you look at South Carolina now, as objectively as you can, kind of take us into how they might be assessed in the committee room.
Well, you mentioned some key words there with body of work and having served on that committee for 4 years. That was something that I said quite often, because you go into that selection room at the end of the season and you talk about a few teams that maybe didn't play as well late. Well, that's got a lot to do with who you played. Maybe you weren't playing your best baseball, but it is about the body of work. So we've got really good numbers. Our metrics are good. I mean, we played. I think that once we go to Tennessee, we probably playing. I believe it's the top 7 teams in the country that we would have played by ranking. So we're not gonna be short when it comes to metrics. We hope we win a few more games, and then that puts us in the position we need to be in. But things do get talked about. You always talk about the last 10, which I was never a big proponent of talking about the last 10, because body of work to me was more important. But we've got good numbers, and hopefully we can finish in a good way, and that takes care of a lot of conversation that we're having.
So he's right. The numbers are good. You'd like them to be a little bit better. And again, is there still an outside opportunity to host? Yes, but it's going to take you definitely winning this series this weekend, and then probably advancing, at least a couple of days at the SEC tournament next week. And again, who are you going to pitch? So I get where people are concerned, but don't, in my opinion, don't be sweating making the national tournament. How can you perform in said national tournament might be the bigger story. We'll hit a break here. We got SEC, a drive around the SEC for you, but Elijah's cut up a few more really good comments from Coach Tanner on a few other things going on, including his thoughts on what the SEC is looking at in their spring meetings. So we'll get you that and the baseball results from last night as the postgame show continues. Roy and Dana Finley are terrific people, and now they're taking a departure because they are telling you no. No. That's right. Roy and Dana are looking at you right in the eye and saying no. About what? How about no payments, no interest until 2025 on a brand new system installed by AAA Heating and Air. Plus, Roy and Dana guarantee you financing options, and you're going to get the AAA 15-year parts and labor guarantee. You ready to find out what that's going to cost you over the course of time? And again, not for a while. Get an instant quote at call888today.com, or you can call them up during business hours, 803-677-1500. They're also providing electrical services now. And if you just need a quick repair, to make sure you stay nice and cool, AAA is doing that for you too. But no payments, no interest until 2025 on a brand new system. 803-677-1500. Stay comfortable with AAA Heating and Air.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you that are causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon, but we'll start with some good news. The good news is that an accident has been cleared on US 378 near Mineral Springs Road, so traffic is moving much better over on 378 in Lexington. But we also have some accidents that have just recently been reported. They're causing some issues here in Richland County. One on Pendleton Street near Sumter Street. Got another one on I-20 westbound at Broad River Road near exit 65. One on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at North Grampian Hills Road. And lastly, in West Columbia, one on Enterprise Parkway at Old Barnwell Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Wednesday. Jay and Elijah back with you. Baseball last night in the conference. Only 3 games. 2 of them got rained out. There were supposed to be 5. Tennessee blanked Belmont 10-0 in Knoxville. That's a run rule game. Why do they want to pick on Belmont like that, man?
I was gonna say, that's rude.
It is.
What do they do to them?
Be nice to your in-state neighbor.
They make good music.
Yeah.
Over at Belmont.
I agree. Southern Miss over Ole Miss, 7-4. Ole Miss now 27-25. Obviously not a conference loss last night, but they got some work to do.
That's not a quad 1 loss, so it doesn't look good for a team that's on the bubble.
Yeah, I don't know what's Southern. I mean, Southern Miss is good. I don't know what their RPI is, and they're going to the tournament. They're
oh yeah,
they're in.
They're
for
good.
Sure.
I just know they're not in the top 25 of the RPI. They're actually 32, so it's not like too terrible. I mean, it is a quad 2 loss.
Well, no, it was in Hattiesburg, so that's a quad 1, right?
Oh, just kidding. Yeah, for some reason I was thinking that was in Oxford.
Yeah, no, it was on the road, so that will be a quad 1 loss.
It will be. Yeah,
okay.
It'll be a Q1 loss.
Okay.
Southern Miss, really good resume. That's their 6th quad 1 win.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
They don't play 18-9 in the Sun Belt. That's a good baseball.
Yeah, no, they're a good baseball team. And speaking of Mississippi, State beat North Alabama 8-4 last night. State is all but assured of hosting at this point. They have really had a terrific second half of the season. So good for Coach Lamonis, Coach Parker. Kentucky and Wright State were canceled because of weather, as was the Auburn game at Samford. So there you go. And again, every SEC series this weekend will take place starting tomorrow. We'll have all the details on that for you coming up on tomorrow's program. Sticking with the drive around the SEC, let's start with the meetings quote here. We got a couple more things I want to get to with Coach Tanner joining us earlier. And again, the full interview, we got way more than we'll get to here in the 5 o'clock hour. It's on the podcast page at 1075thegame.com or on the app. But we did ask Coach Tanner with the SEC meetings in Destin on the horizon, what's the number one thing from his perspective that he feels the conference leadership needs to discuss?
Well, that's a good question, and according to maybe what happens if there is some sort of settlement, you keep hearing the conversation. By the time we get to Destin, then that alters the conversation a little bit. But I think that we'll discuss a lot of things that are happening with the transfer portal and different windows of opportunity to leave, and can we make some adjustments? Can you do it within the conference? Is it going to be national? There's just a lot of different perspectives to look at, and we continually, Commissioner Sankey, it doesn't miss anything. So we spend a lot of time in the details of what's the right thing to do for our student athletes and for our universities across the Southeastern Conference. So, football certainly will be discussed. We go to 16 teams next year, all one division except for women's soccer. They're the only sport that will have 2 divisions, and most of our schedules are done by now, so we're looking at a different schedule than years before. So there's a lot that'll be going on, and maybe some legislation, but I think that we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks before we get to Destin.
Yeah, and that a lot, as he says, could be predicated on that. And we mentioned earlier about the ACC meetings that are taking place this week down on Amelia Island, just north of Jacksonville. And there's a lot of discussion about the potential settlement and what that could look like. As a quick aside, by the way, and I know this is the drive around the SEC, but North Carolina Athletics Director Bubba Cunningham coming under some fire this week. The UNC Athletics Department is looking at close to a $20 million deficit. I think it's around $17 million. A lot of it was from COVID time. David Hale, who covers North Carolina sports, threw that out, that there will be a board meeting tomorrow where Cunningham will have to address the concerns. David says he doesn't believe Bubba's going to be fired. So, yeah, a lot of schools are worried about what this looks like. And, again, a lot of the North Carolina stuff was kind of a hangover effect from COVID. And that school takes sports very seriously, and if you do that, you have to spend money on it. I imagine that North Carolina will find their way out of a $17 million hole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a big figure, but for an athletic department that churns out a lot of money.
Yeah.
They'll be all right.
And they'll get somebody to help them out if they need to. Or, just go to Bank of America and get a loan. I don't know.
Call Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
He's got you $4 million.
He's
$5
got just
to
money.
give.
Yeah.
Just to give,
He's got money laying around. Anyway, coming back around to it. But again, that's a lot of what is happening with these conference meetings will be predicated on this. And I think a lot of these leaders are how does this affect us directly? And as we talked about, it feels like if that settlement comes to pass as constructed, which is still a pretty big if, I think, it would cost each member of the SEC around $2 million a year. They'd receive $2 million less. It wouldn't really cost them. You just wouldn't get as big a distribution from the NCAA as you typically get. So something to think about. Speaking of paying the new NIL laws, you have it listed here, Elijah. This is Coach Tanner, Elijah and me asking him. Elijah and I asking him. There we go. Sometimes I have to get that one right.
I love how we talk about college sports, and oftentimes we can be grammatically incorrect.
Yeah, well, I try to get the I and me thing, but in that case, that's an I, not a me. I think I asked him what he thought of what the lawmakers across the street at the State House did last week.
You give me a great opportunity to say thank you, publicly to all of, our senators and our House members who listened to us and gave us an opportunity to visit with them for many months to try to position this. As you know, Coach Beamer, Coach Staley, Coach Sweeney, the Coastal coaches, Matt Hogue at Coastal, the athletic director, and Graham Neff, we were all at the State House periodically visiting, trying to make sure that everyone understood this is a benefit to our state, not to Clemson or South Carolina or anybody in particular. It was for the student athletes that play in the state of South Carolina. We needed an opportunity to take advantage of the assets that we have, which are, the IPTAY and the Gamecock Club, and to use our assets, because in the NIL space before, if a donor made a donation or went through a collective, they didn't get any credit in as far as parking or tickets or rankings or any of that. This bill now allows that to happen. So it puts us in a better position to compete, if you will, in this landscape, and it's evolving, and there may be changes ahead. We'll have to wait and see, but we're very grateful that we're in a position now, hopefully with the governor's signature, that we move forward and position our universities better than we were before.
I'll be interested to see how this unfolds. And, I've been told by Coach Tanner, by others over on campus, Elijah, and we talked about it a little bit last week, they're ready to go. Exactly what that looks like, we may not really find out until the start of the next school year. I mean, obviously, you'll have a lot of athletes on campus over the summer. Plenty of them take summer classes, and obviously football players will be arriving pretty soon. Shane said a couple days ago that he expects everybody to be on campus for summer classes and summer workouts by Memorial Day, even though the team can't officially have them until later in the summer.
So I don't know, and we don't have time for the cut right now. But Ray did say, and you can hear it. He was unsure if they were going to move the Garnet Trust under the auspices of the university directly. That he felt like for now, and maybe after their consolidation, where there's only one collective truly working with the university, that he feels like they're doing a good job with that. So I'll be curious as to what other schools are doing.
Right.
How many do, and maybe and what kind of talking point that becomes at SEC meetings, because now most states in the conference have something, and other states are working on it. So I imagine there's a lot of how's that working in your state? You know, I mean, because Missouri and Arkansas and Texas have had one for a while. Florida's had theirs for a while. Now South Carolina has one. Tennessee has one. I don't know about Kentucky or Alabama yet. I don't think they do.
Not yet. I think they're proposed in a few states that haven't acted on it yet.
Right. And again, you know, former A&M AD Ross Bjork just trying to comply with the law, which will, again,
Just trying to be a law-abiding citizen.
you know, at least Coach Tanner was admitting. I really do appreciate it. Where Ray was like, it's permissive, not mandatory. It's like, yes, thank you, Coach.
You'll not be going to jail.
Right.
For not complying with.
I mean, again, to hear Ross Bjork tell it last year, I'm going to jail. No, you're not.
That's a grade A grift, man.
It is.
I salute. Like, there are some shameless grifts, everywhere that you see. That's a good one. That is A++. The commitment to the bit is unrivaled. That's how you fail upward. That's how you end up going to Ohio State.
Come back. By the way, that's a drive around the SEC brought to you by Herndon Chevy, your hometown Chevy dealer. Save $20,000 on new Silverados. Together, let's drive. We'll come back on the other side. Sometimes sequels work. If they come out like right away, you can kind of capitalize. Announced today officially about a 30-year gap between the original and the sequel. We'll explain what movie's coming at you soon enough as the postgame show continues.
Tell you about that sequel in just a second. Speaking of sequels, sort of, Caitlin Clark started her second act last night up in Connecticut.
Kind of a sequel.
Kind of. 20 points in a 92-71 loss. Leah Boston played a lot last night. She didn't score a bunch. Caitlin also had 10 turnovers, and a couple of times she got mauled going to the hoop. The Connecticut Sun basically said, welcome officially to the WNBA. But she scored 20 points.
It's a double-double.
Yeah, and it's the wrong kind of double-double.
20 points and 10 turnovers.
Yeah,
That's a double-double, baby. First career double-double for Caitlin Clark. Congratulations. Give it up. Woo!
Does that
Well done.
Does
Well
that count
done.
as what we're
Very
looking
good.
for? I'm not so sure, but
Double-double.
learn from it, move on. They've got some work to do.
Stat sheet stuffer.
Yeah. And then last night, the Pacers became, I saw this morning, the Pacers became the third team in the history of the association to win a playoff game by 30, then or more, then lose the following game by 30 or more. 08 Cavaliers, and I think it was the 16 Dubs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who would that have been? 16 dubs.
I don't know. I just,
that might have been the Cleveland. It might have been the finals.
I don't know. But that's, man, I mean, you win by 30, you lose by 30. Like the playoffs, I don't care who it is. Playoff games shouldn't have, especially now that you're into the conference semis, playoff games shouldn't be 30-point losses.
Oh, you're going to see a whole lot more of it because the volume of threes. Now, no 20-point lead is ever safe, or even
20-point leads. I mean, listen, the NBA. I used to. My buddies and I used to joke about that back in the day, even. Okay, when we watched a lot of NBA. I don't watch it nearly as like I used to. I used to watch a lot of NBA. I just don't anymore. I still like it. I just don't pay as much attention. But like a halftime score could be 56-54, and then like third quarter, somebody goes up like 18.
Yeah, the blink of an eye.
And then like with 8 minutes left, it's down to 12, and then it's a nail biter at the end. Like that's like it's almost like the NBA scripted itself on purpose because basketball is a game of runs, but
Especially when you shoot that many threes.
yeah, and I guess it's a little different now. But I was like, man, two 30-point games, and they're at same teams in the reverse. Just I don't know.
I mean, it's wild, too. I mean, for Game 4 of Mavericks and Thunder, we got into the fourth quarter of that bad boy, and we were in the 80s.
Yeah.
I felt like I was watching Ben Wallace again. I was getting nostalgic. I'm usually not a huge fan of some of the basketball rock fights, but that's one I can get on board with. That was old school.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind some of that. Again, I grew up with an NBA that was more like today's without all the threes because nobody played defense.
They just ran.
Yeah, just up and down the floor.
It is the fastest pace on average for an entire decade in the history.
Well,
of
that's
the
why I
NBA.
say the difference in college basketball and the NBA is, I mean, the ball's the same, the rim is the same, all that, blah, blah, blah. The court is basically the same, but the game is so different. It is
Stark
so
contrast.
different.
The spacing alone
Yeah, it's just so different.
makes it a different sport.
Finally, for you, we mentioned this a little earlier, but if you missed it, Netflix today did confirm a bunch of rumors. Happy Gilmore will be back, not on the big screen. Happy Gilmore 2 will be a Netflix production. Adam Sandler is paid a lot of money to make things for Netflix, whether it's his stand-up specials. It's been, and I guess he's done just some writing and directing. He's starred in a bunch of things on Netflix, but this has been swirling around for a while. Actually, back in March, Christopher McDonald, who played Shooter McGavin, was on a radio show, I think out in L.A., and basically said, hey, this might be happening. And I know that here on our airwaves, Adam Sandler, about a month ago, give or take, was on Dan Patrick. And he said, hey, we're working on it, but it had not been officially announced. But today, at the same meeting where Netflix and the NFL announced that Netflix has 2 Christmas Day games, if you didn't hear that, by the way, your Christmas Day viewing will be at least 2 of the, there's 3 games on Christmas. I didn't even see the third one because it's not on Netflix. I don't know what it's. Did you see which one it was?
I did not, but it's one you can watch without a Netflix.
I'll try to find that out real quick. But Netflix will have the Chiefs and the Steelers, followed by
the Ravens and Texans.
Playoff rematch.
Yeah, there is one other one, but anyway, Happy Gilmore 2 is coming back. Have you seen Happy Gilmore?
Oh, I love Happy
Okay,
Gilmore. Yeah.
it's my personal favorite Sandler movie.
Okay.
Billy Madison is right behind it.
Can quote that whole movie.
I do like The Waterboy. I like a lot of Sandler movies. I do. They're kind of like Will Ferrell movies. None of them have ever been like just punch you in the face funny, like when I was growing up with like Caddyshack or Stripes that just, or even today with like The Hangover or Bridesmaids. Like I consider those just ultra big league comedies. And I'm not knocking Ferrell or Sandler, but
it's a specific brand of humor.
Yeah, it's kind of like Jim Carrey movies, which I'm not as big a fan of. But Happy Gilmore just stands out to me.
It's a classic.
As a Sandler movie. I think I even saw it in the theater twice, before getting it on VHS, then DVD. I think my buddies and I had such a good time seeing it in the theater. We're like, we got to go back. And we were in our mid-20s when that came out. But I love that movie.
One of the funniest movies.
I love that movie. So there's been no announcement from Sandler or Netflix on what the story's going to be, what Happy's been up to for 30 years. Has Happy become
Sad Gilmore?
Well, I don't know. I mean, has he
regained?
Now he's going to be like on the senior tour or something, man. Right? I mean, so did Happy get rich and buy a hockey team? Or, who knows?
To fulfill his dream of being a hockey player?
I mean, is there a little tinge, speaking of Will Ferrell, like is there a semi-pro kind of element? Like, I have no idea.
Does he punch Drew Carey this time, now that Drew Carey is the host?
I was talking about that. Like, does he have a game show host on?
To punch in the face?
You probably have to, right? You got to probably run that gag.
You got to.
But again, like we were talking about, Carl Weathers and Bob Barker are no longer with us for Happy Gilmore 2, but I'm intrigued. I just crossing my fingers.
I'm a sucker for it.
It's going to be good. Yeah, I'm watching regardless. It's supposed to come out sometime next year. Appreciate y'all being with us. Thanks to Coach Tanner. Do it all again tomorrow. See you.
Hell yeah.
And one more final note from AAA Heating and Air, Roy and Dana Finley telling you no. And what they mean by that is a good no. No payments, no interest through 2024 into 2025. You buy a new system from them now, 12 months, no payments, no interest. They guarantee your financing options, and on top of that, they put in the 15-year parts and labor guarantee. That's right. No payments, no interest, 15 years of coverage, and it won't be a big budget killer for you and your family. Get an instant quote today. Call AAAtoday.com is the website. Call AAAtoday.com, or you can call up and talk with them, 803-677-1500. They have done great work at my house through the years. Love what they've done for me. I know Bill Gunner feels the same way about his new system. Just terrific people. That's who they hire. That's who they work with, and they're ready to take care of you. Get a brand new system, no payments, no interest for 12 months. AAA Heating and Air. Tell them we sent you.